specifically for my team is like we're looking at MQLs, SQLs, SAOs, or sales accepted opportunities, pipeline sourced, and pipeline influence. So we're looking at all of these things.
Thank you guys for all joining us here at Demand. We'll get started here. It's going to be a pretty informal convo with three of the best content minds, I'd say, out there. So before we get started, I think the big thing is everyone has been using, demand gen campaigns, running the gated content ebooks for the last however many years. And we're finally at this inflection point where it's not working anymore. And one of the big drivers of that has been content and using content as a way to drive demand, and really good content. So to start it off, Devin, like the No Fluffs article that you wrote on Gong and everything that you guys were doing, I think everyone looks at that as a huge kind of admirable company. Like, I want to do what Gong's doing. Where did you guys get started?
Where did we get started was probably the Gong Labs research blog. I would say that was probably the first core pillar of our content strategy. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago. So that was Chris Orlob. He's now a director of sales. He was a senior director of product marketing, and Amit, who's our CEO. And the real big why behind it and kind of what it is our goal was to create something different in the market in terms of content that our audience of salespeople had never seen before. And the way that we decided to do that was to build off of our POV, or our point of view. So since day one, Gong has been all about using data instead of opinions to help sales professionals be more effective. When you look at the content kind of landscape for salespeople, it's primarily just people's experience, right? Someone's been in sales for 20 years. Here's what worked for me. Or I've been in sales for 10 years in this sector. Here's what worked for me. And so what we did was take all of our product users' data in terms of, sales interactions like emails, calls, web conferencing meetings, and use data science to understand, okay, what's working and what's not in the field based on facts and data instead of like what we think works in the field. So Chris launched this blog, pretty much been doing it every 2 weeks for about, like I said, 4 or 5 years. And the whole goal is just to actually show people reality, like here's what actually works, and then very prescriptive content on like how to actually take those insights and put it into action so you can be more effective at your job.
So I'd say the next thing that I'd love to talk through is just audience. So it's all about your audience at the end of the day. And the non-marketers think, it's easy to grow an audience. So Camille, how do you go about, building an audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost like entertain first, right? Like you have to have like that attention first, and like create things that people want to view enough to like dig deeper, right? So like you have to be, I guess, a good copywriter, and have a good understanding of like what your audience wants. And so this kind of goes back to product marketing and like an understanding your audience and creating that point of view. But what our product marketer did was interview like 40 different people that were ICP or like customers, and like collect all of that data and like, did that persona docs. And I know there's like a lot of hate on persona docs right now, but at a high level, like I think it's helpful for understanding that audience. And then for me, like having that also not be good enough. So like talking to him, getting that feedback, but then me like interacting with people on LinkedIn, having like those interviews one-on-one too. So not just relying like on your sales team for that data, and not just relying like on your product marketer, but as a content leader, as a content marketer, like you should be like boots on the ground, like interacting with people online. And so I think all of those things combined, and I'll like shout out Gong here too, is like listening to Gong calls too. Like I'll do that like on the way to daycare, right? I'll listen to sales calls, and then I'll follow up like with our sales team of like, hey, you said this, like tell me more about that. Like there was one time when one of our AEs mentioned like the three different reasons that people will schedule a demo. And that's like huge for content, right? And so I was like, tell me more about this. Like, let's dig into like those 3 reasons, like why somebody is going to give you a call. Like, I need to create content around that, right? And so I think all of those things, talking with your sales team, talking with your product team and your product marketer, but then also doing those interviews yourself and like being active online, especially on social.
So Devin, you're almost for the Gong LinkedIn account, you're almost at 100K followers. You don't just snap your fingers and, you know, get to 100K. So how did you go about building, you know, your audience using LinkedIn as a place to just build that audience?
Yeah, it was funny when I first joined the marketing team about 2.5 years ago. I think we were on like 14,000 followers. And Udi, our CMO, one of the first things he said as he was kind of onboarding me was like, I want to get us to 100,000 followers. And we had an invite on my calendar called Road to 100K every week that I would go in there and strategize, and with him and another gal, Gabby. At the time, I was like, I don't even see the tunnel, let alone the light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm just going to start running and maybe one day we'll get there. So we're pretty excited, that we'll be there soon. The way that I went about it was, I saw the power that LinkedIn had, not just on the company page, because most company pages weren't and aren't that great. But I saw also like the power that Chris Orlov had. He had 30,000 followers when I joined the team. And not a lot of people back then had 30,000 followers, unless you're like Simon Sinek or something like that. So my strategy was, let's build a content strategy for LinkedIn on Gong's page. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's also build out my personal profile. Let's build out other Gongsters so they can get their name out there, because that's even more firepower, if you will, more awareness. Because if, Sarah Brazier on the Gong sales team, every time she posts and she's getting thousands and thousands of views, people are finding Sarah. Then they're clicking her profile. They're clicking, oh, she works at Gong. They're clicking Gong's profile. Then they're, scrolling and finding content, hopefully liking it and following. So that was kind of like the baseline. When we were building that content strategy for LinkedIn, it was really simple. It was what's working today. I think, Erin, you had said that, or Camille, forgive me, but what's working today? That Gong Labs research was working really well. So let's take that and kind of repurpose and recycle it. So, hey, if all this, we have 20 or 30 blogs written, I'm jumping on video, walking through it in 2 to 4 minutes, making it as entertaining as possible, so I can inform them, kind of earn the right to inform them. And then also just starting to write and explore with like graphics, text, how many posts a day should we do? And really just dialing up the content production week over week. And again, it was very different, right? Like not that many people were putting out high quality video, in terms of like production. Not many people were putting out content that was really approachable and relatable, because despite all the budget you may or may not have, or if it's video or text or whatever, none of that matters if your audience doesn't see themselves in your content. And that was the number one focus, was like, how can we be a mirrored image of our audience so we can win them over? So that's understanding the problems that they have. When do they have those certain challenges? How do they describe those challenges? What emotions come with it? All of those different things are at the core of our playbook. And now it's me and, 4 other marketers on my team, but I tell them, hey, our team is invisible. Like no one's following because we're great marketers. They're following because it feels like a salesperson is writing this. Oftentimes it was because I was in sales. But that's the whole goal, is like, hey, how can we be, in their inner circle? How can we win, as we say in our team, the minds and hearts of sales professionals everywhere, so that we can, really provide the best content?
So one thing I'd love for, we'll go around here for each of you to chime in on, is how active you are on LinkedIn. And I'm a big believer in using people to help kind of build your brand and drive company demand. As opposed to, the boring webinar updates or go download this piece of content from the company page. So Erin, how did you get started, on LinkedIn? How does that translate to what you all are doing at Predictive Index, and how are you helping, generate demand, by way of your LinkedIn activity?
Social's not a huge part of our strategy. We have a lot of other things going on. So I would say if you look at the company page, it's not our biggest muscle. However, I love posting on LinkedIn. I post 4 or 5 times a week, and I've done some trainings for our employees and our executives, and we have some executive presence as well, posting, every single day, and starting to have some real inbound interest coming in through that, which is amazing. I love it. I think it's important when I work with, freelance clients other than PI, I tend to lean in heavily. The reason we don't go as heavy is because we have some other, pokers in the fire, so to say. We're really heavy on revenue enablement, partner enablement. So we have a really strong partner acquisition engine and partner enablement engine going for us, which helps us really communicate and get attention at scale, as well as some other things we have going on.
Gotcha. So Camille, without giving the secret sauce away, I feel like every time I open up my LinkedIn feed, I see something crazy and different from Dooley from a whole bunch of employees. So how have you all gone about it at Dooley?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like huge props to Mark, who is our VP of marketing, for just like championing creators. So there were just creators on our team, including him, and so because of that, like we just gave them like a lot of leeway, and a lot of just like freedom and creativity to create things, and then would come in with like production help. And then so when I came in, it's a little bit more of like, what should that content be to begin with? So that strategy at the beginning, but also like having this like, hey, if you have a good idea, like, do it, you know? And that helps us like run really fast. So for instance, Ding, he'll make something in like 2 hours, and it'll start as like a seed comment or something. He's like, I'm doing it, I'm running with it. Great. And so him and like Ryan are great just like on the creation side, and are both have sales backgrounds. So that's the other thing, is having it come from the subject matter experts is important. And kind of like Devin says, like you actually like don't want the comment of like your marketing is great, right? Like you want the comment of like, you guys understand sales, or like this is like the champion like for us, you know what I mean? Like you to be invisible. And so so that's been like a push for me, is sort of like identifying those creators, but specifically like subject matter experts, and kind of like pushing back a little bit when we have opportunities like to work with creators, but they're not that subject matter expert. Still having that be a thing, but having it mainly come from sales. So Ding, Ryan, and then our CEO, getting him involved. He's also involved on social, and I think that's huge to have a CEO who has a very strong point of view. That was like a big reason why I joined, is he was a salesperson, he was a sales leader, and then like had this problem, right? And so created a solution like around his problem. Like that was a primary reason why I ended up joining. And so empowering those people, having a content calendar like set up too, so you know kind of what's coming down the road, and having like those points of like G2 is something that's like now referenced, like because that's like a big push for us every time that we get G2 awards, and we have like a big strategy around that. But it comes back to creativity, like getting the whole team involved, going with the best idea, and being unbiased and where that comes from, but then also empowering like the subject matter experts on your team. And if you are selling or marketing to marketers or sales or HR, like you have those people on your team that you can tap into. And that's like the easiest way to get started.
So Devin, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question, but still related to the general question. So since you are kind of writing the book when it comes to this at Gong, how do you get, your leadership team to not only be on board with that, but also get employees to like feel empowered to, get out there on LinkedIn? Because it's tough.
Yeah, it is. So I always say how lucky I am, because our CEO used to be a CMO. So he gets marketing. He's also his, desire to build a category, right? So it's coming from the top at Gong, and it has to be from the executive level. Like you're not going to be director below and get the exec team to be like, yeah, let's invest in LinkedIn when it's hard to, attribute, or you don't see it all in the dashboard per se. So I'm very grateful there. Rudy, our CMO, obviously believes in brand and content marketing, but it really comes down to empowerment and enablement. So empowerment is showing people, yes, it's okay to do this, and telling them that it's okay to do this, right? So Amit, our CMO, our CEO, he has like, I don't know, 20, 30,000 followers. He writes on LinkedIn all the time. So does our CMO. And so they see it from the top, like, oh, our executive team is doing this, so it's okay to do. And in fact, supported, right? It's not like you always have to tell them, like, I actually don't know if anyone's ever at Gong said you should post on LinkedIn or please post on LinkedIn. We have times where we prompt the team with like, hey, this big news came out. Like, if you want, you can post it, but we don't have like regulations. Like I don't have time to like, proofread people's posts to make sure it's on brand or whatever. It's like on brand at Gong is being authentic and being who you are, mistakes and all. And so empowering is like showing them it's okay. The enablement part is what Erin said, which is like making it really easy for them to do and showing them how. So I started with just quarterly, every quarter I jump on a lunch and learn. Like, hey, I'm the content guy. You might have seen me around LinkedIn. If we haven't met yet, it's great to chat with you. I'm going to go over why our strategy at Gong is on LinkedIn. So it's like really high level so people understand why we're investing in it. And then the back half of that is just some really quick tips like, hey, if you're new to LinkedIn, or if you kind of want to build a brand, or if you don't even know what that means, but you want to understand that better, here's like 2 to 5 minutes on just some like high level stuff. And then my follow-up is, okay, raise your hand when we're in person, or now it's just in the Zoom chat. I'm like, say yes if you want to join a 30-minute session where you can ask questions. I'll walk you through like 10 tips to really get you started, and it's like more in depth. And every quarter we have about 40 people that say yes to that, and like 20 show up to that session. We record it obviously in Gong, but you get someone every quarter, like 2 or 3 people really start to take it seriously, right? They're writing weekly, they're writing, daily almost. And so it starts to catch momentum, right? You see the person next to you posting on LinkedIn, getting 20, 30 likes, getting some comments, some getting a deal out of it. And so it kind of just catches on as people see it. And what's cool is like, that's how Sarah Brazier got started. She was in the very first Lunch and Learn, and she asked some questions, started writing a post, and she just took off because she had all the skills. I didn't have anything to do with it except for like that slight nudge to just like jump in the pool. And then she's been crushing ever since. And there's, I don't know, dozens of Gongsters who either write their own kind of like unique point of view in their own content, but there's hundreds that will say, oh yeah, Gong has a Gong Labs. Let's share, talk about that. Or, a new, funding announcement, getting some, award, whatever it is. And then the last kind of quick tip I'll say is there's a My Company tab on LinkedIn. I don't know if folks know this. You can go in there, put content in there, like prompts, and share that with the team. So even with people like they want to get started, but they're not really comfortable, there's prompts with like 4 or 5 different things they can go talk about. Everyone always changes it a little bit, because the last thing I want also is like 100 Gongsters copying and pasting the exact same thing and kind of like spamming LinkedIn. We try to avoid that.
You're giving away the cheat codes, because I stumbled on that in LinkedIn a few months ago too. So definitely steal that. So measurement is always a challenge, and trying to figure out, are we on the right track with our content? So Erin, how do you approach measurement and, to show, are we doing the right things? Are we on the right track?
Staying really closely aligned with our RevOps team, asking them to build out the dashboards that we need to see, staying aligned, talking about it. So we have meetings prior to running a campaign to talk through what goals that we want to achieve. After the campaign launches, has been live for a while, we sit down, we look at those, and we talk about them and bring them back to the team. So it's not something where just the executives are getting together for like a monthly metrics meeting. It's something that we're trying to share out with every single person on the team so they can start to build that data muscle. And someone really smart once told me, you don't have to be able to pull all the data yourself. You need to be able to understand what data you need to see so that you can ask for it. And then you need to be able to act on those insights to make better decisions going forward. So just trying to build that muscle, trying to, show the team actual journeys that people have taken has been really interesting. So for example, might pull up, okay, so this person first discovered us through an SEO blog. They clicked the blog CTA. We actually built our own proprietary learning center. So they signed up for Learn, they looked at some courses, and they disappeared for a while. They forgot about us. And then we put out a research report. We promoted it to social using some paid spend, actually. They looked at the report, they remembered us, they took 3 courses, and they requested a demo. So just kind of really walking people through that so they can understand all the moving pieces and kind of what tools we have in our toolkit to get those leads unstuck from the middle of the funnel. Because I know that's a huge pain point for most companies on earth, probably. Getting somebody's email, you have this lead, great, but so what if they don't close? That's not really anything that we should all be celebrating. Getting a lead, anybody can do that. Anybody can throw any crappy piece of content behind a form and pat themselves on the back and say that they got a lead. So what can you do to, get those leads moving through the pipe, and sharing that information back, I think is really important. And then of course, being really tightly aligned with sales and understanding a lead's not just a lead, right? So what's your SCO number? And what do we have to get every month so that we can make sure that we're going to meet our targets, which honestly, I'm sure Camille and Devin, it's every month is harder and steeper. So you can't just coast. You always have to really be thinking and being strategic and collaborating.
Wait,
I
you
love
too?
that.
Your goals are getting larger quarter over quarter? All right, it's
Yeah,
not just me.
it's amazing. Month
This
over
is like
month,
a
even.
therapy
Yeah.
session. Yeah.
If you ever want to talk, I'm here for you.
Okay.
Camille, how are you all tackling content measurement at Dooley right now?
Yeah, so it's still like fairly early for Dooley. So we've just like started building out those dashboards, like, and it's been like just a team effort of, okay, what does content want to see, what does sales want to see, and like building out different views. In Looker actually is what we use, and so that was like as of a month ago, so still fairly early on the measurement. But then it's that, and then it's like Google Analytics for us too, right? Is tracking goals and conversions, and then the main things that I guess I look at are time on page, right? So are they actually consuming the content? Do they like the content? And then one thing that we're looking at for this quarter is, are they going deeper? Like, are they going to another page? So like pages per session too, and like taking a look at that. And then, yeah, lastly, and like most importantly is like conversions, right? Are we getting conversions like when people come to the site? So those are kind of like three core ones that I look at just on the content side. And then we have just, yeah, more detail in like the actual Looker dashboard.
Devin, what are you all looking at Gong when it comes to measurement?
Yeah, so we played the volume game for a really long time because that was our strategy, was like brand awareness, right? So we just wanted to get our name out there. And so we've matured that to look specifically for my team is like, we're looking at MQLs, SQLs, SAOs, sales accepted opportunities, pipeline sourced, and pipeline influence. So we're looking at all of these things, and some campaigns are built for other, certain metrics, right? Like, I think it's easy to say like, we want MQLs or SQLs depending on kind of your company, or like, opportunities at the end of the day. Some campaigns are really good for influencing, pipeline, like very specific sales funnels. Like they need content because it's a long sales cycle. So like, we know we're not going to get, more acquisition. We're going to help move deals along, hopefully, or kind of stay top of mind. So we're kind of getting to that point. And then the next thing we're trying to do is get our content experience to the next level to help all of those different things. So it's not so much brute force, but you can kind of build these content experiences where it's like, oh, I got you, you filled out a form for the first time, never fill out a form again, like consume as much as you want. Like we're trying to get more toward that like Netflix bingeable experience where it's like, hey, I just need to know who you are once and then come on in, enjoy everything. And then we're checking out Uber Flip and Path Factory right now to see best one to support that experience, and also some of the analytics on the back end.
I just want to double down on that. You should always be thinking about the experience for the end user, not you, not like, oh, we got to collect these leads. Let me stick a form on every single ebook on my website. And something that we did to overcome that was that learning center. So we have, on-demand learning courses, certifications, videos, all of that. But also we just put all of our ebooks in there and our guides so that people can sign in once and then they have all that learning on demand. They never have to fill out another form again.
I love that.
So you kind of stole my next question, Erin, and this is one of the biggest questions. So gated or ungated? Is there a time and a place for it? It sounds like there is. What do you think?
I have an opinion on that. So yes, there are definitely ways to strategically gate your content. So the learning center type thing is a form of strategic gating where you're not annoying people. They're recognizing the value. I think the thing is you need to really ask yourself, is this valuable enough for someone to give their information? Don't kid yourself, be realistic. If this thing took you a day to write, it's probably not valuable enough for somebody to give their information. So a learning center, yes, cool. Some big event with all these speakers, yes, cool. Even a big research report that you spent 3 months writing and no one else on the entire planet has this exact data that you have, yes, maybe you make a decision to gate that. Or even there, you can strategically gate. So the way that we do our research reports, those live outside of Learn. The rest of our content lives inside of Learn, except for our blog. We have some branded content that lives ungated on our site, and our research reports live on the marketing site. And we give away a ton of information for free, usually 6 or 7 findings, charts, our takeaways for the reader. And then we say, hey, if this is interesting to you and you want to download the full 40-page report, cool, you can. But we're not forcing them to. We're inviting them to if they would like to. So kind of making it more about choice and less about forced choice, I think is a big differentiator in the overall end experience.
I love that. Devin, what do you think? Gated, ungated?
Man, if I didn't have goals, I'd say ungate all, let the people have what they want, and good things will happen. Here's how we break it down is like thought leadership, top of funnel. We do gate it because it's not Gong focused. This is thought leadership. This is helping you be better. Our MO is to create content so good that you'd pay for it. So if you're giving me your email address and we give you the content, hopefully you feel like that's a 10x trade. Like no problem. I'm very happy I made that. But as I mentioned, we're moving to like a Path Factory like solution because I want to solve that. You know, if you love the first thing and then you go, great, let me download a second one. I don't want to make you put in that form again. I know it's frustrating. And we've gotten feedback. Love the content. Please stop making me put in my email address. So I'm like, okay, I hear you. Like we're working on that. The other kind of way we do it is like, you know, for product marketing, anything lower funnel, I think you'd be so lucky that someone wants to learn about your product in this series. Like don't gate that. And then the other thing we do that's kind of in the middle is like an upgrade asset approach. So it's kind of like, hey, here's our Gong Labs research, proprietary data, the most expensive content we put out. It's free. And then we have an upgrade asset. So it could be like, you know, hey, we talked about these are the best topics on sales calls. This is how to do it. By the way, here's 10 value selling prompts you can download, put in your form, and you get like very tactical copy paste information that you can take with you. So we've had a lot of success with that because it still gets the thought leadership out there. We still get a ton of engagement, but then we also start to see some pipeline source because people are downloading it. And then we have a very specific follow-up process of, you know, hey, SDRs, if you see this campaign, here's a full pack, what to write on an email, what to say on a cold call, and a lot of context on that asset. So you're not getting the call of, you know, hey, Mark, saw you downloaded XYZ, ready to take a Gong demo. Like, no, we don't do that at all. Like we teach the team, like, this is a trigger, right? Like you're saying, Camille, like they showed interest in something. There's probably an underlying problem. It's our job to go uncover that and show them that, hey, we're the best solution for that if in case that is something you want to explore.
I love that. One thing I do want to talk about is team structure and how your teams are built right now. So Camille, why don't you kick us off? How are you building your team out at Dooley right now for content?
Yeah, sure. So for context, like I started just a few months ago. So pretty new content team, but right now it's me, and then it's Sam, who was actually, I think, the second marketer hire at Dooley. And so she's been like showrunner, producer, like very, very creative, does a lot of like video editing, event coordination. So Sam, and then recently brought on Kyle. So he's our lifecycle marketing manager. It has like a superpower of copywriting. Like I think it's just like straight up, he's a better copywriter than I am. And so love having him on the team. And then he works on conversion rate optimization too, right? So that just like customer journey on the site and just like across the board. So Kyle, and then we also now have like a front end developer, which is kind of more of like a shared, I hate saying like resource, like a person, but Mateus is our front end developers like across the marketing team. So I work closely with him as well.
What about you, Erin?
Over the past 3+ years, I have grown the content team from 1, me, to 8. We function semi as an internal agency in a lot of ways, only because we're not strictly focused on getting attention and getting those to closed won. We're also focused on creating copy for the software, making sure that we're injecting the brand into the software, carrying all the language over from the marketing site into the software. We're also focused on partner enablement and activation. So once we sign on our new partners, we are going to help create the materials and make sure that it's on brand as well. We're building out all of our partner onboarding and our client onboarding right within Learn. So we're really busy with all of that as well, which is why we don't just have a typical traditional content team. So underneath me, there are 3 verticals. So there's editorial. So there's a lead writer who manages 2 other writers. There's graphic design, and then there's media production. And there's a lead media producer who manages the functions of video and digital learning. So that's building any sort of interactive experiences. And we really try to think about our campaigns holistically because we have all this great resource right in-house. So, all right, we want to build a splash page. How can we not just get that out into the world and get people into Learn, but how can we actually move them through Learn so that they want to eventually request a demo, which is the ultimate for us, because our Organic hand raisers close at 35%. So it's a lot better than our low intent leads, which close at 3%. So the more we can get people to raise their hand, the better. That's
amazing. Now, Devin, I am not looking for any jobs at Gong, but I do pay attention to what you guys are posting because I'm trying to think of, what are they thinking about role-wise that I'm not already thinking of? And you've got some pretty interesting roles over there. So walk us through your structure of the team right now.
Sure. So shout out to all team of ones out there. If you've been a team of one, that's what I was for a while. We hired a content marketer about 2 years ago to just do more. It was like, Devin's one guy, he can only host so many webinars, only write so much in a day. Like, let's just try to, double our firepower, which we definitely did with Jonathan. And basically the way I've structured is like, we have some programs that I've either built myself or adopted and scaled myself. So other than that first hire, which was just like a little bit like, let's do a little bit more of everything, it was like, where do we need someone to scale next? So then we hired someone specifically for webinars and digital events. So she's on the content team, but helps with that. Next person was specifically focused on certain segments. So, commercial through enterprise, focusing on upmarket. And so at first it was kind of like, a bit of an agency approach. I work on the demand gen team, so we were very acquisition focused, even though we influence other parts of the content lifecycle. But it was like, we just had our own KPIs and goals. Now that we're at 4 people, so it's myself, a senior growth marketing manager, senior content marketing manager, content intern, and a content ops. So we have someone who splits their time between ops and content. As we now have each person aligns with an adjacent marketing team on our demand gen team. So Jonathan works with digital advertising. Nehal works with our events team. Jordan works with ABM and so on. And so we have this really good breakdown of goals where like, hey, you have your own thing to do on content, but we also are working with other teams and putting KPI in front of them. So it kind of like forces people to work together and to have a common goal.
So I was trying to stay on with how many people you mentioned. How big is your content team right now, Devin?
1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4.5 because technically content ops reports to ops, but we have like, he's on my team. We have one-on-one. So like technically he's not my head count. And then next, just because you said we're talking about is hiring a managing editor. So someone who can help with our editorial process, do a lot of editing across not just my team, but like I said, product marketing, scaling, ABM is scaling, and there's just so much content that we put out that we're looking for someone to help on the editing and content creation front there.
Gotcha. So you gave away a few of the cheat codes on scaling, but Erin, give me some of your cheat codes on scaling content creation. It's not easy.
Process. So when you're super early on and you have a 1-person team, you're probably pretty scrappy. Even if you're, creating content without an actual content person, you're probably doing your best to just get what you can out the door. So for me, the first thing that I came in to do is adding some process. So something as simple as a process for how people can get ideas to you. How can you automate that, right? So rather than people stopping you in the hallway and saying, hey, I got this great idea, you can say, okay, cool, that's a great idea. Here's the form, fill out this form. And you can communicate to people, making it as easy as possible. Of course, you don't want to have some crazy form that has like 20 fields. They're not going to want to do it. Should be as simple as your name's already there. You don't need to enter your name or your email address. It's automated. They just get to drop their idea in one box and press submit, and it can go right to your project management software. So we use Asana. I have a board that's content ideas. So whenever someone has an idea, it goes right to the ideas board. And then when it comes time for a campaign, I can look in there and see if any of the ideas would be a fit for the campaign that we're doing. I have a content request process and a form. It's not good for everything. Some things are too complex to go through a form, but it's a good catch-all for a lot of requests that people need. And then we also have some meetings that can help you scale certain things. So for example, we have biweekly brainstorm meeting, and we're brainstorming specifically for specific needs. So it's not like, oh, we're doing this, this event, let's brainstorm content. It's kind of like, okay, let's brainstorm content that we're going to send to people who register for the event before the event to make sure they get excited and they want to make sure they come to the event because attendance is important, right? So just giving people guardrails, because I'm sure you've all heard that expression, guardrails, free creativity, and having process so that you can get everybody's ideas. And then the last thing I'll have to say, I can't do this without saying this, being that I come from a place of behavioral science and people data. some people love to brainstorm out loud. They're very comfortable sharing ideas on the fly. Some people are not. They're not comfortable interrupting. They're not the loudest voice in the room, but they all have great ideas. They just might not be able to vocalize them as fast as others. So if you are going to do this brainstorm meeting as part of scaling your content efforts, I would say follow a process that allows people to have some heads down time to think. So you could send the topic in advance so that they can come prepared with their ideas, or you could use like a Miro activity if you're remote, pop on Zoom, say, okay, I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes, go heads down, jot down your ideas, then we're going to share. And that's just making sure that you're getting everyone's ideas equally, not just the loudest voice in the room.
I love that.
Let me, can I jump on that content idea intake form for a second?
Let's do it.
In talking to like marketers and content creators, like they very quickly, or maybe this has been established when they got there, is like content is like an order taking machine, is like, hey, we have this thing, go do it. Hey, we have this idea, go do it. And if you want to shift that dynamic, that form is a great place to do it, because it just sets a boundary of like, don't come holler at my desk, don't blow me up on Slack and like expect me to get this done. But the other thing too is try to get your internal domain experts to buy into it, right? Some of our best ideas, like some of our all-time greatest content, came from a salesperson, sales leader coming up to me or filling out the form with this very half-baked idea, but it was brilliant, right? It just needed to be kind of worked. So I would say like it might seem like a very small thing, and it actually is. It was one of the first things I built internally, was this intake form, but highly recommend it. It helps on all fronts.
Yeah, I think that's something that I struggle with too, because you don't want to open it up to too many different cooks in the kitchen, but you also do want to get good ideas that you might not already be thinking of that are still helpful. Camille, give away some of your cheat codes of what you're doing right now in terms of scaling content at Do It.
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas around this, so let me try and like parse them out. But yeah, I think it can be dangerous when you have a Slack channel in like feeling like you need to do all of those things, right? So I think I like Erin and Devin said of like setting those boundaries, of having, and we do have like an intake form for things that are like need to be done. But then, yeah, I like the idea of having that also be like the idea board too, of and just having it be organized that way. So there's that. But the first thing that came to mind actually was I had Alina Benny from Nextiva on my podcast recently. And when I was asking her about scaling content, because they've done a great job of it, she was saying, she's like, don't worry about like scaling content. As soon as you start being like, how can we scale this? Like, how can we do more and more? She's like, you can get into like bad habits and like patterns. And I've like seen that. And so I think before you scale, like have something worth scaling. Like, I think that's like the best rule.
That's amazing.
Right. Is create something that people love and that people are coming back to. And once you have like some of those things, it just goes back to like, once you have some data, like then you can scale, because you know what to scale and you have feedback. And so that's like the number one thing that I would say, and that I've like learned and like relearned a bunch of times, is like do the unscalable things when you're at like I am, like a Series B type company, or like an early stage startup. Do those things first. And then look at the data and then scale what's working, right? But don't just try and like scale everything, because that doesn't work. And it's just ineffective, because you're scaling the things that don't work as well as the things that did work well. So figuring that out. And then I think the other sort of cheat code is just repurposing, right? So one thing that I did like when I first came in and had to like start creating content but didn't have the whole context was we kind of had a repository of podcast episodes that our sales leaders had been on, or that just leadership has been on. So it was going through that content, right? And like turning it into a post, like turning it into something else. Like the content was already there. It was like, I'd mentioned those like Gong calls of like content was there, pulled like some of that content for our content. And so just putting it in a different context of like, it's there, give leadership, like give your subject matter experts, like an easy way to get that content out. And I think for a lot of people it's speaking, right? Like rather than writing. For some people it is writing. So I think that intake form is helpful too. But look through the content that you already have and see how you can repurpose it and like redistribute it in a different way. I think that's like another early stage like cheat code that's worked well for me. You can do that on your personal content as well. And then yeah, and then it's like I said before, it's like the scaling up, not scaling out. So I think like the thing that we all want to do is like, okay, like now I need to be on, now I need to do SEO. Like now I need to be like on search. Like now I need to be on this other social channel, like TikTok. Why are we not on there? And so I think just doubling down like on what's working and picking like one or two other channels of like, here's where we have data and like we think that we can win here. And just not trying to do too much, but just going deeper in one or two things.
There was so much gold in there. That was amazing. So we've got time for one last question. I absolutely hate panels where it's, you know, hey, final thoughts. So we are not going to do that. What we are going to do is we're going to go around and see if we're going to have a panel on content next year, a year from now at the second demand. Hopefully it's in person. What's the biggest content trend that we're going to be talking about, Erin?
I don't know that it's a trend, but it's something that not many companies do, and they could do better, is creating their own proprietary data and doing data storytelling. When I say creating your own data, you could do something like Gong does, where they go right into their software. And if you don't have the capabilities to do that, you can create your own data insights by running surveys, doing your own research reports. And that way you're not constantly, you know, it's a really good way to be a thought leader. You're not constantly searching for other people's data to back up your point. You're actually being the thought leader in the market, and you're able to build trust and build a name for yourself. And of course, generate leads and backlinks and press. And it kind of amplifies and snowballs your ability to get attention in a way that's not icky, in a way that is trustworthy. And especially if you're selling into a certain audience that is a little more, you know, an executive audience, for example, they don't believe what you tell them. They need to see the hard facts and the data. They're much more logical, analytical.
I love that. Devin, what are we talking about a year from now when it comes to content?
I mean, I can't say data-driven storytelling now, so I got to pick a different one, but that was top 3 for me. I think I don't have a better name for it, but like LinkedIn advocacy programs. So we've seen individuals take off. There's some companies that, you know, have some programs like we've talked about. I think next year companies are finally some are going to start understanding the, you know, the early majority that this is something you can't ignore and that employees want to do. So you start to hear more programmatic approaches and maybe even how to measure that. That might be the next year. That might be 2023, how to measure it. But next year will be like, how do I empower my employees on LinkedIn?
All right, I'm holding you to that 2 years from now. Camille, what's the content trend we're talking about next year?
So I think we're already talking about both of these things. I won't come up with something like that no one's ever said. But the two things that come to mind are media company, right? Like build a media company. Tons of people have said this, but it comes back to like be everyone's favorite, right? Be like the one that people like come back to and have like the best content, and not necessarily like the most content, but just everything that comes out is good and is reputable and feels like a media company. So there's that, and then there's also like product-led content. I think we're gonna like see more of that next year. I think we're already seeing like a lot of it. There's like a lot written on like product-led SEO, but I think there'll be like more product-led social, like product-led everything. And so that's one thing I think we're exploring. I think like that we are exploring is just having like your content be like part of your product too, like have it be like built in to the product, and thinking through that as well. So I think those are two trends to look at.
Thank you, Devin, Camille, and Erin for making time for us and giving away a whole lot of cheat codes. This was unbelievable.